which are in construction, real estate development, building, trades, and suppliers. His average consulting client increases profits by 64% in the first year, and he's recognized as one of the top 100 coaches in the world.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. It's great to see everybody. I'd like to introduce my co-host and probably the star of today's program and challenge, S. Robert August. Many of you may know Robert. Robert is really just an incredible individual, and in fact has been recognized as a legend in the industry and is in the National Association of Home Builders Hall of Fame. Really, truly an extraordinary individual. And last year, out of all the members, then there's over 120,000 members in the NAHB, 21,000 just last year have either solicited to bring new members or to retain members. Robert was the #1 in the entire country doing it. And in fact, lifetime, he has attracted and brought more members to the NAHB than any other member in history. Robert is author of more than 1,000 articles and books. He has, as well as instructed more than 2,500 classes, webinars, speeches, training sessions, podcasts, lectures, and strategy sessions. And Robert is known as the $40 billion man because he has marketed and sold more than $40 billion of real estate and related services. Truly incredible, and he'll be sharing some of what he's done. He's the master of working with Alliance Partners. But today, we're focusing on the top 4 strategies for maximizing your profits. But before we get started, there was a question from yesterday, and I wanted to begin with that because I think that's such a critical place for us to start. So Robert, there's a question, and I think this is really right up your alley, which is, how do you get started on an idea home?
Thank you for your wonderful comments this morning. It's great to be with you as well. You've done a great job moderating and moving the program along with your expertise. Thank you. Additionally, getting started with an idea home, it can be done in several ways. The first one is to do it independently of your home builders association or builder industry association. And that would be where you physically would gather all of your key trade partners, manufacturers, vendors, and service companies, and have a meeting with them to begin the discussion of putting together this event. Secondarily, you would do the same through the Builders Association. And by doing that, you would work in tandem with the special events or the executive officer, depending upon the size of the association. And you would I would also recommend that you take best practices from other trade associations that are offering these type of events and or other companies. You'll find that it's rare to see several of these programs in one market at one time. And as a result, you'll be a standalone event, regardless of whether you tie into an association or not. My recommendation is to participate with the association because it gives the association the ability to use all of its members, recruit new members, retain existing members, and make it a multi-marketing campaign for the community.
Perfect. Oh, great. Let's get started right away with our program. And when we talk about profit, this is nothing new. That if we look back in history, and again, I'm trained as an economist, that the search for profits today and to understand what's happening in the future has gone back to the times when people lived in caves. As home builders, we're out of the caves. It's what's the next step. So what I want to share with you is something that we've developed that will enable you to understand, and you'll be everybody here will be getting a worksheet so that they can work on really understanding what their profit margins are, where they're at, and to understand also what their potential capabilities are. As soon as I find it. That's why. Great. Thank you, everybody, for for your patience with me. So we created there will be a worksheet that will be loaded for everybody on the Facebook group. So encourage everybody to join the Facebook group so you can get this worksheet. Del, if you could put in the chat that link to the Facebook group for everybody. Some people have joined, others have not. A number of people have not joined. That's how you can access the recordings as well as this incredible information and these worksheets for your use. So in construction revenue, what's the first thing? What's the first step is how much is your revenue? And the revenue we want to talk about is just construction revenue as a home builder. Now, it may vary depending upon business, and we create custom calculators for different businesses. As you may know, and you heard, I've worked with hundreds of different industries, and in fact, many different types of businesses within construction. We're doing this model for a home builder, and for round numbers, we'll talk about a construction revenue of 10 million, which could be $10 million houses. It could be 5 $2 million houses. It could be one $10 million home. What you need to understand is these are your financial numbers, and it's important that you know them, that you track them accurately, that you monitor it, you work to improve it, but you have to first make sure that you keep great records. And unfortunately, I'll say, having worked with more than 3,000 businesses, there are only 3 that I can think of that absolutely knew their numbers cold. So there's always room for improvement. Land costs, Robert, in this kind of situation, a 20% land cost is pretty common, isn't it?
It is, typically 1/5 of your price would be relegated to the land cost in a typical home. So in today's world, depending upon where you are in the country, let's say that there's a single family home that you can build for $500,000, then with all of the cost of that land, putting that program together would be $100,000.
Great. So so we have $2 million. You can see that right here. We have land cost of $2 million, and then construction labor should be ideally around 10%. But you have to watch what are your figures. And if you'll notice, what we call this is COGS, or cost of goods sold. And what that is what is the cost that is directly related. It's a direct cost related to the production of your service or product, in this case, the home. And directly, it's just construction labor. There's also subcontractor costs. What would you include in that, Robert, so people understand as a home builder, what would they be including in subcontractor and trade costs?
Well, you would use your mechanical systems, for example, your electric, your plumbing, your heating, venting, air conditioning, your framing, your finished trim, all your finished materials as it relates to appliances, wall tile, floor tile, And it goes on and on from that perspective. As we
Right.
said over the last couple of days, there can be as many as 100 companies that you're doing business with in a large metropolitan area like Dallas or Houston or New York City. So each of these trades becomes more specialized. In smaller markets, you'll have an overlap. Maybe the drywaller also does all the painting,
Right.
for example.
Yeah. Excellent. So then, as we look at construction materials, and this has been a moving target, hasn't it, Robert?
Well, it has been because of supply chain disruption,
Right.
and the costs have gone up. We're dealing with projected increases again year over year, and anticipating more material increases over the next year as well. Labor will flatten out, but to a degree. But at the same time, the cost of materials will continue to increase.
Right. And then, well, the other construction costs are would be here 500,000. What we have a list here of that. Is there anything else that's not here that you think people would want to be cognizant of? Or I think we put together a pretty complete list of what people, but there may be some other incidental items in construction, correct?
Yeah, I mean, you also have services, other construction costs would relate to architecture, landscape architecture, engineering, and all the different facets of engineering that you would integrate into the program. And these costs that we have right now are pretty standard as well.
Excellent. And then I think this is something you will always talk about this, because sales commissions and closing costs are really critical. Maybe you want to take just a moment and talk about that, because too often we find that businesses try and skimp on this. Robert, in your career, you have said sales make business flow. I mean, that's the heart of business is sales, and you want to make sure your salespeople are paid well, right?
You want to make sure that your salespeople are paid well. And in particular, those of you who are taking notes and dealing with the real estate community, you want to make sure that your salespeople are compensated the same way, whether they do business with a real estate broker or not. What you don't want to do with your salespeople is overcompensate them when there's not a real estate broker, because they'll do everything not to work with real estate brokers, which can be a very, very disastrous opportunity for you to hopefully grow your business. If a real estate broker understands that she is not going to get paid that well or at all to do business with your company, she's going to steer her customer away from doing business with you. So when we put together our budgets, we always look at a 6% fee for compensation for internal management and external management. And a lot of times we don't use all of that money, which is really good, because it goes back to the profit margins. So, for example, if you have 70% of all of your sales in a given year that are real estate co-op, and that co-op figure is 3%. So by not using all of that money, you can put it back into marketing, profit, and just a host of different opportunities, and also maybe future land acquisition.
Fantastic. So if you look at everything here, and this is the first thing that you have to determine, and it's critical to understand that this is the cost of goods sold. You need to have that category clear, because this, in other words, if you were to double your business, these costs likely would double. You may get some economies of scale, but typically we might look and say, well, if we don't get that, this is what is driving, this is the direct cost for us. So that would double if we double our business. So the next part is business operating overhead, and that's where there's often confusion. Business operating overhead is the cost for your business to run if you don't sell a single product or service. That you have that overhead no matter what. It's just to turn on the lights and open the door. So the first cost on that is your administrative and management team. And that includes all costs here: wages, taxes, workers' comp, any benefits, etc. Almost all businesses require outsourced resources. It could be legal, accounting, consultant, human resources, and it's important that you accurately record them, and that both administrative and management and outsource are properly allocated as overhead and not part of your are not part of the cost of goods sold. If you have an office, and it doesn't matter whether it's a trailer, your office could be a Ford F-150 Lightning, which they've really made some changes, so they are. Or it could be an extensive showroom operation, etc. There may be show homes, etc., or design centers. Whatever that is, it's important that you understand whether you sell a single home or not. That's going to be your cost, and we're looking here at, in this case, at $100,000. Now, unfortunately, in training and development, I believe it's important to invest in that. Robert, even more so, because that in his whole career, he has emphasized in every business that he's worked for, run, managed, or owned, has invested heavily in training development. But this is probably a realistic figure, wouldn't you say, Robert, of what most businesses invest in training and development?
Yeah, I think if you average it out, that would be correct, which is a shame.
Yeah. For marketing, and again, we encourage businesses to work to invest and look at return on investment, but this is a $50,000 expense. Robert, I know you had some thoughts on marketing and some of the best marketing ideas and focus for businesses.
Well, in our world, retracting back to the point before, for sales, we're typically at 6%. In marketing, we're at 2%. Most companies are at 1.5%. And it's always interesting. People always wonder why we outsell and outclose the competition. Because we look at developing the marketing expense, Jeff, and just as a real quick point, what we do, sometimes the first year of a 3-year build-out program that we project, we'll do 3% the first year, 2% the second year, and 1% the third year. So it will average out to 2%. And the reason that it decelerates or declines from year to year to year is because we start doing a great job creating referrals from our existing customers to reduce our marketing costs. Because when you get your customers working for you as additional salespeople, you can reduce your marketing expense. But we like to put together an initial budget, a minimum of 2%, and in this case, it would have been $200,000.
Right. So vehicle expense, and that's any company-owned vehicle or reimbursement, $50,000, miscellaneous. And while we have a few here, it really could be pretty much anything else that we haven't listed here. And I think we may have estimated a little bit high here, Robert, but I think that gives you that margin of error, doesn't it?
It does, but you'll also note in the miscellaneous that it sort of slides over into training with subscriptions. And we would encourage all of your employees to read trade manuals, to read the Builder's Daily. If you're not subscribing to the Builder's Daily, it's free. Builder Magazine, Professional Builder, free. And then there's other publications and books that we would encourage you to read, to purchase, and also to, when you go through a book, we encourage you to underline important points. If you don't understand something, call the author, call other mentors and peers in the area to help you, and also use to the advantage of NEHB Connect, which is one of the best idea exchange forums that I've ever witnessed. And it's a tremendous program that's being used by over 40,000 employees right now of companies of the NEHB.
Excellent. Obviously, there in almost every business, there's going to be some level of debt and debt service, property taxes, and insurance, business licenses, and permits. Those tend often to be smaller. There may be a lot of paperwork, but they tend to be smaller. $100,000 or so in depreciation expense. And what we show that as an expense, even though you may look at it as a bookkeeping expense, the reason is that equipment is going to have to be replaced. So you need to set aside money to do it. So it's very important to track that. And then there may be other taxes. In this case, there aren't. So we then calculate the profit and break even. And this is just really gold. So on in this $10 million builder business, there's a $3.9 million, $3,900,000 gross profit. The net profit, because remember we had overhead, so the net profit, the gross profit, is a revenue of 10 million less total cost of goods of 6,100,000. We then subtract the overhead cost of 1,311,000 and have net profit of 2,589,000. Our gross profit margin of 39% is the 3.9 million divided by 10 million. And here the 2.589 million of net profit divided by 10 million is a 26% profit, net profit margin. But what's very important to understand for this builder with these margins, to just break even, they must do $3,361,538 of sales. So that, knowing that number, Robert, how many businesses do you know that you work with really know their break-even number? And every day they know, what do we need today to break even?
The answer to the question is surprisingly very small.
Right.
There's a handful, percentage-wise. And it was so amazing to me, not having sold production, having sold semi-custom, and also custom homes. I would tell you, going to the closing, as many closings as I've been to and our staff, the builders are always amazed that they don't have their final numbers calculated before they even close a home.
Right. Unfortunately, too many businesses don't know how much they really made until they file their taxes, which is absolutely horrific. So moving on from that is, what's your business model? And there are a couple of different business models. One that very few companies use. I think, Robert, you said that only a handful of companies in the industry do it and use it. And that's the everything is included. It's price fixed. And probably the standout example of that is Lennar, correct?
Yes.
So you may want to talk about what's an everything included model.
Well, in a model like this, and the silver lining, first of all, one of the things that Lennar wanted to do was to increase its market share and its profits. And in its study, it realized that if it could determine through market research what the buyers really wanted and then deliver it with everything with standard and not make changes to the home, that they could build faster, that they could build, not only could they build faster, they could deliver the home more quickly and more complete, and not be slowed down by change orders, by supply chain disruption. And again, this model worked for many, many years. And then all of a sudden we hit the pandemic, and it really made a big difference because of the way that the corporation was set up. They could make the substitutions with materials that they had to provide as standard or upgraded based on the ability to acquire products. So they didn't miss a beat because they were out there working through the marketplace to beat supply chain disruption very, very quickly and effectively. A lot of spec builders that we have worked with don't like to make any change orders. In fact, a number of them don't even like to work in a situation where they really don't sell the home until usually the last month, right before it's completed, so that they don't have to deal with customers. Right. And it's just a funny way of everybody working, but everything included is it's a very good model if you can streamline, control your purchasing, control your financing, control your labor, control the manufacturers, and have everybody working in sync with you in order to deliver an outstanding product.
It's a very, very high level of discipline, and I think probably only 5% of all builders follow that model, right? Or 5%
Yes.
of homes. Great. So the next model, and I think we struggle to say what's the appropriate name other than to call it the conventional model. And basically, it's that it's really, what would I call it? The everything included is a proactive and very planned model, right, Robert?
Yes,
the conventional model is the exact opposite. It's the reactive model. And as you'll see, there's always something going on. And you may want to share what you've seen as we go through some of these different items, and you'll see that it's always reacting to what is happening with clients, with the marketplace, with vendors, with suppliers, with labor, right?
Yeah, yes. I mean, in a typical sense, as I shared, in bigger markets, you'll often have as many as 100 companies that you'll be bidding. So that would require, in a normal business model, to bid three lines of products and services and trades from different markets and from different companies. So that would be 300 bids. Most builders don't do that. They tell you that they bid and that they know their bids, et cetera. But the more that they can bid effectively, the more they can control their budget. And by controlling the budget better, they can be much more effective at making more profit, so that those margins that you shared earlier would be increasing rather than decreasing.
So, I mean, this is really the challenge. And what we talked about is just not tracking what's going on. And I encourage businesses, especially with today's technology, do everything you can, find the systems, processes, tools, checklists. Everybody's got a cell phone, track everything. If when product is received, it has to be logged in. When product goes out, it has to be logged out. When work is done each day, track what's going on. So many businesses don't track that, and they don't realize, as you said, till after closing or sometimes till months later, how much they really made or lost on a particular project. The next is being controlled by vendors and trades. And Rob, you talk about this all the time, and you work both with manufacturers, vendors, and trades, as well as home builders. What happens, and what can both sides do to be able to not get stuck in this model?
Well, I think what's been very instrumental for me, when I got started in the industry, I worked in customer service, as I shared earlier in our programs. And we were the largest builder in the United States, and we shipped out kits. We shipped an exterior shipment and eventually an interior shipment. So either the consumer and or the builder would build the home. In many instances, the builder built the home, of course. And what was interesting, we dealt with misshipments, damages, and shortages. And if you can imagine, people are, of course, are going through supply chain disruption. They didn't know what to do. When I entered the business, we were in the midst of one of the biggest booms in the history of the universe. Building expansion was taking place in every country simultaneously. And it was cheaper, it was more effective for manufacturers to ship abroad and make 20 to 30% more than they could earn at home. So what we had to do was pivot. We had standard features, and what we need to do, is to put ourselves into a position where, yes, we have standard features, but if we know that we can't get windows and doors delivered for many, many weeks, we need to, before we go out and start building the home, we need to change the rough openings in the home with regard to product that we can find that's of equal or better material. Most people did not pivot right away. They were at the mercy of their supplier.
That's a lack of purchase controls.
Exactly.
Both in terms of vendor ordering in advance, negotiating the best prices, doing bulk purchases when possible, the whole range of purchase controls, not having them, especially during the supply chain disruption, has been deadly for businesses. Really an outstanding point. So the next thing is, and we just talked about it, is the number of businesses that simply don't know their numbers properly. They don't know them in real time, and they don't know their margins. If you don't know those, you're at best performing at a suboptimal basis. At worst, you're on your way to going out of business and perhaps bankruptcy. Did you have a comment on that?
Well, a couple of quick things. You really, really need to know your numbers the same way that I discussed Tony Barshevsky yesterday from A&M Custom Homes. Tony knew where every penny was going all the time with regard to himself and his wife, who worked in the business, handled the purchasing, handled the subcontractors. And they were able to make more money because they knew their margins. Now, another question was raised in the chat by Lindy, and she wanted to know if these percentages that we're using today can be addressed to run a home builders association. And
I
the
think
answer
that's specifically regarding marketing, Robert.
If it's marketing, the answer is yes. I will share with all of you who are affiliated with trade associations, whether it's a home builders association, board of realtors, if it's a chamber of commerce, economic development council, most of them never spend money for marketing other than maybe an economic development council, which attracts business from all over the country and maybe all over the globe. And we've been involved in all of these trade associations that I've mentioned. And one of the worst of all are the builder associations. They really, if they do a product expo or an idea home or a creative home, that's pretty much it. But you, with your trade associations, should be in front of the news every day. You should be meeting with the media as a trade association. You should be setting the trends for the marketplace. And conversely, into the world of marketing, knowing your numbers will help you, especially when you put together a marketing campaign of advertising, public relations, and promotion. And just
that
as
really,
a quick...
That really leads to the next thing, which is, and you're a big advocate of this, of knowing the changes in the marketplace, knowing the trends, or whether they be financial, land, water, and technology, so that you're at the leading edge instead of trailing behind. And if you can just in a minute sum up how you feel that everyone here, and we have a range of industries represented, what's the best way for someone to know the changes and to keep current in their marketplace?
I think that that's a really important point that relates back to research. And as you've heard me share, you need to read. You need to read about what's going on locally. You need to know what's regionally and nationally and somewhat internationally. The more that you can pay attention to trends and looking at the numbers, as we shared, what are the price ranges that are selling? What are the products that are selling? We see a major shift right now where single family product in many markets.
Let's get to that later, Robert. I think that's important, but I think it's important to understand because I want to get to the next point. But I think that answers a question that we saw earlier. As we look to the next item, which is, I think, how many builders have you heard have complained about change orders?
A lot of builders do because they don't know how to deal with it. And as a result, then they're afraid of losing a transaction if they don't make the change order. And they don't know how to set the expectations up front. And so we have put together a series of systems over the years for change orders that really take the stress out of the business practice and put more profit in the bottom line.
Right, and I mean that as we've discussed and seen with many clients, that using change orders as a profit enhancement center and doing them properly can and you've had through your career so many examples where you've been able to double the profit margin because you already have the sunk costs in the initial home building. This already is an opportunity to significantly, and you say, I think, double the profitability of every offering of every home sold by doing that properly. So I think those systems are
well,
really
yeah, I would share with you that, you know, in the first neighborhood that I ever actually sold and marketed, it was in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And we were in the midst of a very, very deep recession at the time. Had the leading manufacturer declare bankruptcy within the trading area, which was Bethlehem Steel. And it really was like a volcanic eruption or an earthquake that took place in the economy. And we had two sales during our pre-sale moment, if you will. And when we got ready to open, we were really concerned about the impact of the economy. And just from a viral situation, a customer came in and said, gee, you know, I really like your product. And frankly, I want to live across the street in a custom neighborhood. I can't afford it now, but I'd like to make some changes. Can you make changes? And I was quick to say, well, all you have to do is give us a deposit, and it's a refundable deposit. If it doesn't work for you, we'll refund you the deposit. And in those days, it was $100. And I took the $100 and went back to management, and they said, well, we don't make changes. And I said, we're going to lose this sale. We could make this sale. And in essence, what we started to do is sit down and determine what changes the buyer wanted. At the end of the day, we were able to build a home for this specific family. And I'll always remember their names, the Levines. And they had grown up in Allentown, Pennsylvania. They became great ambassadors for us. But more importantly to the story, they made 36 change orders. And those 36 change orders that we were able to adapt prior to building their home doubled the profit center of that home. And as we became known as the change builder, we picked up so much market share. And this was our first community that we were building in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And within a year, we became the #1 builder in Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton, in the Lehigh County area, from coming from Philadelphia, 60 miles away, and becoming the #1 builder overnight.
That's fabulous. And as you look at the conventional model, it's basically people building a mess and making another mess. Nothing like duplicating failure. And that's what happens when you continually are in a reactive mode. And it's really a simple 3-step formula, as you say, to be able to move to the next, to move to control instead of being controlled. The first step is really defining those processes, right? And there's so many processes, Robert, that need to be defined in every business, certainly in home building, when you have over 100 different companies, vendors, suppliers that are involved, trades, etc., right?
Without question. I think that the real key is putting together procedures that your team has a buy-in to.
In writing, it has to be written down, right?
It's got to be in writing into a policy and procedure or operations manual. The other thing is that you just can't put the manual together. You have to have each of your team members helping you put together the manual and making sure that their departments, their employees are all becoming a part of this definition, and that they're all trained in a policy and procedure meeting once a week. Very, very critical. Most people don't do this. And that's, again, what helps us to set apart the processes, working with construction, working with purchasing, financing, marketing, sales, putting all the team members together in the definition, and then meeting regularly to enhance and improve the definition.
And that's what we find in every superstar team, whether it be a business team or a sports team, that to excel, you need to define, document, and train. And training is such a critical element of that success. So Robert and I crafted the 12 steps. We're going to go through it a bit quickly, and you may not be able to see it so clearly. And unfortunately, because of the way the screen is set up, hopefully you can see at least the main point. But Delge, if you can make sure to upload this to the Facebook group, so everyone, again, log into the Facebook group or join the Facebook group, and you'll be able to get this entire 12 steps for scaling your business. I'm not going to read all of the detail points. Robert and I will hit a couple of, and highlight a couple of points. But the first thing is you have to have a plan, and that's the blueprint, the very first stage. You need to get your all of your financial elements totally in order. And having a spouse or a high school kid do your bookkeeping usually isn't the best thing. This is a multi-million-dollar business. If you're building more than 2 homes, it's $1 million business, multi-million-dollar business, right, Robert?
Absolutely.
When you're doing that, you need to get those numbers right. And budgeting, forecasting, absolutely essential. And each of these elements needs to be addressed. Understanding your labor needs and what each person is doing. And Robert, I know you this is such a critical issue, both labor and the next item, which is supply chain, is such a challenge. Can you take 1 minute and just give a tip or two for those who are struggling with how they're dealing with the supply chain?
Jeff, I think it's important, number one, not to rely just on one manufacturer, one vendor. And what we do, we encourage you through your home builder association to get to know all the players in the marketplace, get to know all the lumber companies that are members, all your electrical, HVAC, and plumbing contractors. Get to know all the products that they use and learn from them what are the products that are most accessible. Sometimes it's even better to upgrade a standard feature to a better feature if you know that you can get that product, and use it as a marketing advantage in order to lure, attract, and close more buyers. So it's a function of understanding. What I learned years ago was to be able to not only shop the local market, but then shop the regional area, and then shop the national area. And then as I grew our businesses with which we were working, we started entering into the international market. And right now, through the National Association of Home Builders, we're already courting major businesses in Scandinavia that have unbelievable products, manufactured goods. In Europe, we have another gentleman that we're working that, frankly, was originally living in New Jersey, moved to Spain in order to become more adaptable to marketing European products into the United States. So you look for different channels and constantly research them in order to facilitate. The other thing,
that's a really important point, Robert, because trade with China is down. I saw shipments are down 40%, and that's some has been onshored into the U.S., but a large chunk of it has gone to other markets such as Europe. So I think that's
quick point, Jeff.
Capitalization. Excuse me, Robert, because just because of time, I want to make sure we cover these points. Is capitalization is absolutely essential. Businesses must have both sufficient cash and resources available to be able to grow. They have to have the systems and processes, as we talked about. We talked about having a clearly defined process so that they can build efficiently, effectively, use the labor, use their team, use all their resources properly. You as owners or leaders of your team have to manage properly. And Robert, marketing and sales they shouldn't be an afterthought. We have them here as 8 and 9, not because they're the 8th or 9th most important step, but you need to know what you're doing before you're marketing and selling. But having an absolutely rock solid 12 to 18 month marketing plan and having a highly trained team using technology to give them the advantage. Land is where great profits can be made, but sometimes you can use other people's land if you don't have the resources. And that's why you need the financing for all of these elements: development, construction, permanent, and finally, so critical to have the legal aspect addressed, because there's so many elements that could go sideways. But I really want you to focus on the next part, Robert, which is upsell, downsell, cross-sell, and add-on. These are really absolutely critical elements for every business. So we talk about, and you were sharing a bit before about the good, the better, and best model. And maybe you could take some time now and give everyone here some pointers on what they can do. And let's focus with home builders of how they can use the good, better, and best model to really double up their profits.
Yeah. Well, what we always do, regardless of the price point, regardless of the product style or design, we set up a good, better, and best system. And the good is good product, vanilla product that you can count on, standard products that that will, of course, stand the test of time, have great warranty.
Brands? Are those name brand products, Robert?
Yeah, we always use name brand products whenever possible. And the reason is, again, the more brands that you use, you become what we call the brand builder. And as a result of being the brand builder, people often know, consumers and real estate brokers often know brands better than they do know the building company itself. So it's another way to tie your brand, your building company brand, into a bigger brand, particular, working with companies like Anderson and Pella Windows, working with appliance companies that are well marketed and well known. So in the good area, you would have the typical companies like Whirlpool and General Electric and Beko Blumberg and now LG Electronics and Samsung. And of interest, is this point, Samsung and LG Electronics, Jeff, are South Korean companies. And as a result, they didn't have the problems that China has had with the pandemic, and their sales have increased well over 100%. Beko is from Turkey and is the second leading manufacturer of appliances in Europe. So you find these other companies that have warehouses filled with material, and so you develop a good. And then many of these companies have upside products, have increased products within their product lines, so that you can go to the better and best. And creating a series of standards with companies that can deliver, working through your vendors in particular on a local basis. Some of the manufacturers you can deal directly with, but for the most part, you're going to deal with vendors. So what we try to do is put together a good, better, best in alignment. The good is a standard feature. The better is a better grade upgrade, and the best is a much better opportunity. And they maybe cross over from different manufacturers. So, for example, as a quick aside, you might do LG Electronics or LG for good, then better. You might use their signature kitchen suite program, and then for best, you might signal up to a product that could be Sub-Zero or Wolf, and those type of products that are quintessential. And even on an international basis, you might find other products that are equal to those or even better. So it's a question of pricing them out and making profit margins on each one of them, so that you're scaling and those are within your bandwidth. The other issue is that sometimes customers will say to you, well, I came from New York City and I have to have product X. And here you are in Pittsburgh or Dallas, and you're not familiar with the product, and you have to research it and determine whether you want to bring it in and make sure that not only can you integrate it into your process, but can it be installed simply? Can it be warranted? Can it be serviced thereafter? So that every time that you make these change orders, you want to make sure that you're going to have the ability to continue servicing the buyer to the excellent degree that they deserve.
Just what a great summary, Robert, of that. And we've talked about this, and this is really a picture that summarizes it all, Robert, doesn't it? That you can, if you want to really have huge profits, have the systems and processes and be built to handle change orders, you get the yacht. Otherwise, with the original contract, what do you get? You get the little lifeboat, right?
Well, it's another way of looking at it. But there are a number of builders who will constantly pay attention, Jeff, and this is an important point. Many years ago, we had standard drywall that was installed, and it was installed perpendicular. And we had a demand from our customers to create an option for them with rounded corners. We had so many customers that wanted the rounded corners, and we didn't feel that it was important to nickel and dime them. So as an option became more adaptable, and more attainable, what we started doing is, for example, is rounding the corners at no additional. We built the price of the change into the price of the home, so we weren't nickel and diming the buyer, and paid attention to the marketplace. And we found that by rounding the corners, and making it a standard feature, created a competitive edge. Well, I should say a competitive round. And as a result, what we were able to do was increase our sales, because our standard features were other companies' options. And we used that as a marketing tool and a marketing line, as we had much better features than our competition.
That's absolutely brilliant, Robert. There's a question that came up that I think can really help everybody here. And interesting question, what's the most profitable target market today? Is it a tract home? Is it semi-custom or custom?
It's another really good question. And what we've seen is that the upper end is holding its own with semi-custom, custom homes and doing very, very well. But the biggest transition, the biggest switch that we have been seeing and that we have been scouting through our architects, learning through the architects, learning through land planners as well, is the fact that more people are shifting to multifamily for sale. We believe that the build to rent, there's still a market, but we see that over the next year that market's going to have a lot of over absorption. But we would encourage everyone, Jeff, to look at building paired homes or duplexes or townhomes or market rate condominiums in determining about your market in the lower price points to take over for the single family homes that are just more expensive to build and sometimes double than that of a condominium, especially in markets where the rents are so expensive. It costs more to build, to live in a 2-bedroom apartment home in one of our key trading areas in the metropolitan Denver area than it does to live in a single family home on a cost of a mortgage to a cost of rent. So we encourage builders now to transition into developing excellent multifamily product for sale.
That's just terrific, Robert. Again, I always learn every time we talk and every time we have a chance to do any kind of training and educational program. So I want to thank you. I want to thank Deljane and Tiffany, our administrative team, for everything they've done to help bring today's program together, and all the participants. The feedback you provided us is great. Any more questions that you might have, please ask them or follow up by email. We would appreciate if you have any reaction. We would love and we request that you give us a testimonial and share what you found of most value today. And please, tomorrow's session is going to be a game changer for everyone, especially if you're a home builder, but also for other businesses, because it will give you an idea of how you can adapt it. But we're going to take you step by step through Robert's secret #1 strategy that has propelled project after project, community, neighborhood development after each one together, and it is really it's going to rock your world. So I want to thank you all for being here, for your attention, for the feedback you've given. Robert, do you have any closing comments other than to say we want your testimonials, and please share this and invite your friends, associates, employees, and peers?
Now, I'd like to thank everybody for being here, #1. I would also like to encourage you for tomorrow, those of you who enjoy increasing your sales in a challenging market, will have a tremendous opportunity for you to learn and do just that. We would encourage you to invite any of your friends, any of your employees, associates to the meeting tomorrow. What we're going to be sharing with you will be helpful to increase all these wonderful calculated numbers that Jeff and I had shared earlier today. And we thank you very, very much. Again, we're here for you. This has been an absolute pleasure for me to share this information. And I look forward to a great day tomorrow with you and your associates. Thanks so much for being here today.
Terrific. I encourage everyone. We have this spreadsheet here that is in the Facebook group. If you're not registered, please register. You can get this completed, and we'd love to help you any way we can in reviewing that. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. We're here to help you. Have a great day, and we look forward to seeing everyone here tomorrow.
Thank you.